I think there's got to be a corresponding move. So I ask you this: the odd man out, it's probably got to be one or two of Kerfoot, Hall, or Engvall, right?
Yeah, and to me, I would just like to see Hall kind of bounce down the road. Nothing against him, nothing personal. He's a good NHL
Yeah,
player, better than I was. I'm not saying any of that stuff, but just I feel like when he's a deciding factor in a game, it's because of a negative thing. He is rarely, if ever, a deciding factor or a big implement in a game where he's making a difference towards the positive. It's usually he's like a placement holder almost. He moves the puck here and there. And when he's not on his game, he makes the mistakes that cost the game. And he's been better of late, of course. I'm just saying if you can get rid of his, what is he, $2 million this year? If you can shove that off, which they have to do anyway just to activate Murray, give someone that could use him on a different roster under different circumstances, different pressure, different market, and develop him up and see what he can become. Someone could use him, get a draft pick back for him, free up $2 million, and then now you have another space for, maybe a Luke Shen or another defenseman. I would just like to see them beef up this defense one more man and one more spot, and then I'm just licking my lips for the playoffs because I think they have done literally all they possibly could. I didn't think they could do this much at the trade deadline, and they've already done so much. Now I'm saying, well, shit, sky's the limit. Try to get another thing done, and we know we got to move somebody out, but if not, I agree. It's going to be a Kerfoot or an Engvall or something like that. They make enough money where they could justify moving them out to free up some space.
of course, there's a route of going, hey, Matt Murray's going to stay on LTIR, for the rest of the season, which is a possibility. It is Matt Murray. He can get hurt, getting out of the shower, quite frankly. But all signs point to this guy being activated later on this week. So, again, barring something unforeseen, an injury elsewhere or a change to Matt Murray's status, I think obviously there's a strong likelihood that somebody or a couple players are going to be out the door for a cap reasoning. And you never say never. Again, there's some time to go. I do agree with you. You can never have enough depth come the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I think to that point, and I believe Kerwin made a great point in the chat here, that Mark Giordano, man, the guy's like 39. He's been playing some epic minutes and prefers that and all that. But I think you have to do your best to start, channeling some of these guys in anticipation for that opening round against Tampa, in anticipation of a longer run in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They have to start thinking about stuff like that. And again, I don't think you can have enough depth on the back end, right?
No, you can't. And when you look at the Stanley Cup winners, man, it is depth on defense and it's goaltending. That's what wins it. And I know that hasn't been the Leafs' problem necessarily. I think, like you've mentioned it before, a lot of people think that they're not good enough on D and they're not good enough at goaltender position, and that is true to a degree, but when you look at the playoffs and look at the games and look at the series is that they have lost, it's been because they haven't been able to score that goal that they need to, and they're losing 3-2 and they can only muster 2 goals in 60 minutes. It's just not cutting it. And when they get down and have a bad break or a bad penalty kill and they get down, it's like, okay, a good team's going to come back and they're going to find a way to score in that last 7 minutes of the third, and they just don't fucking do it. So that has been their problem. And obviously you look at their forwards, that you should have addressed that. I mean, they're just loaded. Yeah. And again, to win the Stanley Cup, you need the back end and the goaltenders to be rock solid, which I think they have definitely improved from last year. And I don't believe that Tampa is a better team than last year. So all signs point to this being a good matchup for the Toronto Maple Leafs. As tough as a series as it will be, I believe they will be favored and they should win this series.
They're nearly a Samsonov injury away from the season being lost. So I'll just say that, man. I got no faith in Matt Murray, but I was laughing yesterday, man. Like Nick Richard, who I had on the show a couple of weeks ago, does great prospect work over at the LeafsNation.com, put out a poll. If you had to send one, would it be Engvall or Kerfoot? I was stunned to see this poll like split down the center, man. It was like 51-49 in favor of keeping Kerfoot. So I ask you this question: Kerfoot or Engvall? I know where the answer is going to be and what it's going to be, man. There is no wrong. Well, there is a wrong answer, and it's clearly number 47.
I like Kerfoot more than I like Engvall, just from a fan of the team standpoint. But when it comes down to production, I think Engvall is is just
Interesting.
better. He produces more. He's been scoring lately, and Kerfoot has kind of been non-existent. I know he's been bumped down to the depth chart. He's been put on that fourth line. He's not getting the minutes, and you could sit there and go, how am I supposed to produce with that? But Engvall does seem to get the job done a little more, but he does bother me more that he's got that big body and he just refuses to use
Long
it.
ass
And
neck
I'm like,
too.
buddy, I would just get that guy in a room and say, listen, I don't care. I don't care what you like to do. I need you to finish your freaking hits out there and to bang. You got a huge body, and we need some of that. If you look at the hits that this team has compared to other teams, it's like non-existent. It's like single and double digits. And then the three guys we've brought on here recently have got hundreds and hundreds of hits. So we've upgraded in that. But in the playoffs, when it's a war and it's a grind, I think a guy like that needs to bang the body. But unfortunately, I think he's more valuable than Kerfoot right now.
That's a good breakdown, man. Again, I agree with you. Kerfoot's obviously the better player, but I think you look at deployment in the lineup, he's not playing in the top six, especially now with Ryan O'Reilly in the mix. Who's the better bottom six plug? And I think the edge goes to Engvall, believe it or not. I'm with you. Like, I wish he could be a bit more physical for that frame. He plays like a guy who is 5'8", who I play, in EASHL and in NHL 23. Like, it's just, you need that combination of speed and toughness, and not even grip, just a guy who's going to throw his body around a bit. And I think to that point, obviously, there's a bit more purpose with like an Engvall in the bottom six. So I'm very curious to see who's in, who's out over the next couple of days. There has to be, in my world, at least a corresponding move for this team.